All right, I'll go ahead and call our meeting to order. This is the meeting of the Larimer Planning Commission for Wednesday, May 15th, 2024. As is our custom, we start with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I would ask you to stand and join me for that. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you very much. All right, for those in the audience today, this evening, as well as those who may be watching online, we are a volunteer board appointed by the Board of County Commissioners. And I would generally like to ask my fellow commissioners to introduce themselves for the sake of those here. Want to go ahead?
Yeah, good evening. My name is Patrick Rowe. I live in Northwest Fort Collins, and I've been on the commission for about 3 years.
Hi, I'm Shelby King. I live in LaPorte, and I have been on the commission since last summer.
Good evening. My name is Connor Duffy. I've been on the commission for about 2 years now, and I live in the Timnath area.
Mr. Slutsky?
Mr. Slutsky is here. I'm John Slutsky, and I live in southeast Fort Collins, and I've been on the commission for a little more than 2 years.
And my name is Bob Choate. This is my nearing end of my 6th year on the commission, and I live near Horsetooth Reservoir. We have our agenda here in front of us. Do we have any amendments to the agenda?
We do not.
All right. The next item on our agenda is public comment on county land use code. You know what? I apologize. Let me ask Ms. Axmaker, would you please introduce staff in attendance tonight?
It would be my pleasure, and just as a quick note, Mr. Chairman, we did have Commissioner Ann Bess Johnson online briefly, so I don't know if she will be joining us later. Maybe she was having technical difficulties as we were earlier, so I will alert you if she's able to join us.
Thank you.
As the meeting proceeds. So I am Jenny Axmaker. I am the planning manager. Joining me here tonight is Christine Luckinson from the County Attorney's Office. We also have Leah Snyder from the Health Department. We have Stephen Rothwell from our Engineering Division or Department, as well as Justin Curry, one of our planners. We did have Amy White joining us from the Code Compliance Department, but she is hiding in the back. So. With that, let's do a quick procedural overview. We respectfully request that all members of the public silence their electronic devices. Please help yourself to a copy of the agenda and hearing procedures. They're on the wall right over here, which are they're also posted on the website if you're joining us online at larimer.org/BOCC commissioners-meetings. For the hearing procedures tonight, following each discussion item, we will begin with a presentation from county staff, followed by a presentation from the applicant with time for any clarifying questions from the commissioners. There will be an opportunity for any members of the public to address the commission with their comments on the matter. Both the applicant and county staff will have an opportunity to respond to any questions or concerns raised during public testimony. The commission will then ask any remaining questions of the applicant or staff before entering into deliberations and working towards a decision on the matter. During public comment, please wait to speak until recognized by the chair. Please maintain civility, refraining from audience applause, comments, or disruptions, whether positive or negative. Please make all comments to the commissioners from the podium. We have a portable microphone if one is needed. And please state your name at the beginning of your comments and provide the spelling of your name if it's uncommon. Please speak directly into the microphone so that the participants joining us via Zoom may hear. For hybrid meeting attendees, you will be muted until you are recognized by the chair. If an online attendee wishes to speak or request a consent item to be removed, please use the raise your hand function on the Zoom control bar. Upon request, assisted listening devices are available for the hearing impaired. There is one item on the consent agenda tonight and one item on the discussion agenda. And Mr. Chairman, if you'll allow me, I'd like to address a notice issue that came up on the discussion agenda item. So inadvertently, there was a typo in the notice that was sent out to the neighbors on this item. It was originally, notice was sent out saying that the Loveland L&E item was located in the LaPorte area, which was incorrect. The newspaper notice was properly noticed, and everything else was done correctly. So we went ahead and re-noticed the items to those providing neighbor notice, recognizing it as occurring in Loveland, but all the information on the original notice pointed to our website, which did provide that correct information on the location being in Loveland and not in LaPorte. So I just wanted to recognize that, yes, we did improperly say it was in LaPorte. However, it was just a typo, and everything else that we published legally was correct, that the notice was for Loveland. So with that, I will turn it over back to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Acmaker. I appreciate that. Appreciate the explanation. So the next thing on our
Was your mic on,
Your
Commissioner?
speaker's not working.
all right, I'll lean in a little closer to my microphone. Can you all hear me okay?
No. Try again.
The light is on. Nope.
Check. Mine.
Now it's working.
Well, let's try this. Hello? Just a moment. Let's figure that out. Thank you.
Yeah, let me try. Check. That one works. Hello. There we go.
Come on down.
All right. We're gonna switch seats.
Sounds good.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right. It's a Verizon commercial from 15 years ago. Can you hear me now? All right. So the next thing on our agenda is public comment on the county land use code and regarding the relevant land use matters that are not on tonight's agenda. So we have a couple of items on our agenda which you will have an opportunity to provide comment on. Not talking about that, but anything else related to our land use in Larimer County. Is there anybody here in the room who would like to provide public comment on anything else related to land use, but not on our agenda?
We're having a hard time hearing you. Your voice kind of trailed off.
I'm doing my best.
You might want to bring the mic closer.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Check.
Yeah, I don't think it's working.
Oh, wait, it's a
Give it a minute and let Zoom reset.
Okay.
For a second.
I can do that. Check. Better?
That's much better.
Let me know if it stops working again. I'll move chairs as many times as necessary. Okay, so to repeat, you will have an opportunity to provide public comment on the items that are on our agenda. But if there is any other item that's not on our agenda related to county land use, now is your opportunity to provide public comment on that. Anybody in the room, is there anybody in the room who would like to provide public comment on any land use item not on our agenda? And then I'll wait for Ms. Axemaker to go back, but I wanted to make sure that there were no others online who want to provide public comment. How's that? Can you hear me with this microphone?
No, that's not working. Oh.
Check. That one's working. You might have to hold it right next to your face.
Check.
This is a reminder for those online, if you wish to make public comment on a topic not on our agenda, please use the raise your hand function. We have no hands raised.
Great, thank you. All right, so we'll close the general public comment, and the next thing on our agenda is approval of minutes. Now, because we had a special meeting in April, we have 2 minutes to approve, and I would ask, is there any corrections or a motion to approve the minutes from April 10th, 2024?
I'll make that motion.
A second.
All right, motion and second to approve the minutes from April 10th, 2024. We can do a roll call, please.
King,
Yes.
Duffy,
Yes.
Slutsky,
Yes,
Rowe,
Yes.
Chair Choate.
Yes. All right, those minutes are approved. Can I get a motion or discussion if needed for approval of the April 17th, 2024 minutes?
A motion that we approve the minutes for April 17th, 2024.
Second?
Second, motion and second made to approve the minutes for April 17th, 2024. We'll do a roll call vote, please.
Rowe,
Yes.
Slutsky,
yes,
Duffy,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Chair Choate.
Yes. All right, thank you. That motion also passes. Next on our agenda is our consent items. We have one item on the consent agenda. It is the Larimer County Central Diversion Campus Location and Extent File Number 24 ZONE 3629. This is on consent, and unless one of my fellow members of the Planning Commission or a member of the public wants us to have a public hearing, it will be approved on consent, and there will be no public hearing. If you want to talk, want to provide public comment on the Larimer County Central Diversion Campus Location and Extent file, then you need to let us know, and we will pull it from the consent agenda and have a full public hearing. If you do not do that, then you will not have an opportunity for public comment on this item. We're taking this separate from the next item. So the first question, any planning commissioners here in the room, Mr. Slutsky online, do you desire to pull this from the consent agenda? All right, seeing none. Anybody in the room want to provide public comment on this item or otherwise hear a full public presentation? And Ms. Axemaker, anybody online?
We have no hands raised online.
All right.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda as published with a single item.
A second.
All right, we've had a motion and second to approve the consent agenda as published, including one item, the Larimer County Central Diversion Campus Location and Extent, file number 24 Zone 3629. I will request a roll call vote, please.
Commissioner King,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Slutsky,
yes,
Duffy,
Yes.
Chair Choate.
Yes. So that item is approved. Next item on our agenda, the next is our discussion item on our agenda. We have one discussion item. It is the City of Loveland Skyline Trailhead and Trail Location and Extent, file number 24 ZONE 3633. And we'll hear from staff. I will point out that this location and extent file is considered, and if approved, the final approval comes from the Planning Commission, this board tonight, rather than being forwarded as a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners because of the type of application it is. It's a location and extent application. So with that, I would
Whoa, explain that.
Did you say it'll be approved tonight?
I said if approved, the approval is tonight rather than a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners. Most of our applications we hear them and we make a recommendation to the Board of County Commissioners, and the Board of County Commissioners makes the final determination. For certain applications, primarily what we're talking about tonight, a location and extent review, the Planning Commission by state law makes the final determination on the application, subject to appeals that can occur. I would defer to Ms. Lugeson if there are any other explanation that's needed. And then we would move on to, I guess, Mr. Curie, are you presenting that one?
Does that answer any questions about that? I can explain the process a little more.
Yeah, explain a little bit more. I'm curious. So
Sure.
if you approve it tonight, that's it?
He's got to come up to a mic if you want this on.
What's that?
Could you come to the mic? I'm sorry. That way that it's on the record. I'm sorry about that.
Thank you. No, I'm not familiar with the process. But
Sure.
yeah, bear with me. So if you approve it tonight, then then we have to go through appeal process, or? I thought we were here to discuss this thing.
So
We've never been involved in it. I guess that's what kind of threw us all. We got a notice that, okay, we're here, we've talked about it, but did you ever reach out to our community?
So this type of application is different than our usual planning applications. It's called a location and extent, and it's something that it's a statutory creation. It's created by the legislature to try to get public entities to collaborate. So basically, the county has a land use code. And if another public entity wants to do a public project or a utility company wants to do a project, they have to first apply for location and extent review to see if they can accommodate where it's feasible our land use code, the county's land use code. But it's more of something to create collaboration among public entities because they have the ability to override the land use code where they can't feasibly meet it. That's why it's just a location and extent, just to see can the application conform to our land use code. If this is, let's say it was denied, any location and extent, it doesn't go up to our board, it actually goes to the board of that entity for approval. So it's kind of a weird type of planning application. It's not normal like if you're building a big development or something.
So to go back to the city? Is that what you're saying?
So the applicant on this one, Justin, is?
The city of Loveland.
Who's with the city? Are you with the city?
No, I'm planning with the
Is there
county.
someone here from the city?
The applicants are here. I think
We're getting a little out of order. Let's just try it this way.
I'm just trying to figure out who's here. That's all.
Absolutely. The city is the applicant. They're right there.
Okay.
They're
No,
going to
we're
have
not
an
adversarial.
opportunity
We're just
to
trying to
present
figure it
this
out.
case.
So-
But first, what we're going to do is hear from staff.
Okay.
We'll ask questions. We'll hear from the city, and then we'll hear from the
Is that
public.
what, okay. Well, that helps.
Have an opportunity to ask those questions again.
We're just trying to figure out who's here.
I get you.
Is there, as long as I'm here, I'm going to ask you this. We have a letter from one of our neighbors. Can I enter this into, so something you could read instead of us?
Bring that up when you come up
We come up?
during public comment.
Okay, thank you.
Good time for that. Thank you, Ms. Lugeson. Mr. Curry, if you don't mind.
Good evening, commissioners, members of the public. My name is Justin Curry, and I will be presenting on the City of Loveland Skyline Trailhead Location and Extent, project number 24, Zone 3633. The location and extent review is for the City of Loveland to construct a new parking lot and access to serve the existing Skyline natural area with the location map here. Per Colorado revised statute, whenever any county planning commission has adopted a master plan of the county or any part thereof, no road, park, or other public way, ground or space, no public building or structure or public utility shall be constructed or authorized in the unincorporated territory of the county until and unless the proposed location and extent has been submitted and approved by such county or regional planning commission. And so per that state statute, we have an article in our land use code that considers the following public projects subject to the L&E process. They're public schools, hospitals, public campgrounds, public trails, trailheads and parks, and public roads. The purpose of the L&E review, per the land use code, is to determine if a public use, structure, or utility proposed in unincorporated Larimer County conforms with the adopted county comprehensive plan. Their L&E review is not a review of the land use code standards nor a technical review of the proposed design. To approve the L&E application, the Larimer County Planning Commission must find that the proposal is consistent with the Larimer County Comprehensive Plan based on consideration of relevant plan principles, maps, and elements. So just some more clarification, this is not a review or approval of, the trail location or anything like that. It's all conceptual. This is just strictly a land use and zoning match to make sure that the proposal meets the underlying comprehensive plan, long-term land use goals of the county. The next couple of slides are the elements and items from that comprehensive plan that the applicant submitted that have been laid out in more detail in my staff report and the applicant's application. And so we can go over those if in more detail if a member of the commission or a member of the public wants some more clarification on a couple of these elements that the applicant submitted that meets our comprehensive plan. And that's the next slide. And then the application was referred to multiple agencies, including Larimer County Engineering, Health and Environment, our Road and Bridge Department, and the county parks. And Larimer County Engineering provided comments and had no issues or concerns with the proposal. Public notice to surrounding property owners within 500 feet was submitted, and we received no public comments from anyone from the public. To approve an L&E application, the Larimer County Planning Commission must find that the proposal is consistent with the Larimer County Comprehensive Plan based on consideration of relevant plan principles and map elements. The applicant has provided information with respect to this proposal, which does not reveal any significant issues or conflicts. As long as the proposed parking lot is constructed in a way that meets requirements of any state, county, or local regulations, staff finds that the proposal is consistent with the intent and purpose of the Larimer County Comprehensive Plan. The Development Service Team recommends approval of the City of Loveland Skyline Trailhead location and extent, subject to the following conditions, and that is that a technical review and approval is required prior to any construction of the project and prior to applying for any applicable construction permits and/or building permits. And with that, I can take any questions from the board or the commissioners.
Are there any questions for Mr. Curry from the planning commissioners? There'll be time for public comment. Not yet, though. From the planning commissioners, are there any questions? All right, seeing none, I will ask if the applicant is present and would like to provide any remarks.
Good evening, commissioners, staff, members of the community in the audience. My name is Marika Kopp. I'm a parks planner for the City of Loveland. I just moved to parks in February. Before that, I was in current planning. But I have to say, environmental planning is my passion, so I have found my home in Parks and Rec and open lands. It's been a great experience. Do I have the ability to control?
I'll have to do that for you. So just kind of
okay,
give
great.
me a heads up. Oh, this one? Oh, actually, sorry. I didn't know. It hasn't worked. What thing? Oh, I see it now.
Young lady,
Yes,
if you could speak up a little bit more. I've only got one hearing aid working.
you got it. I'll raise the microphone. I'm very tall. Sorry if I'm screaming at you.
Was it Maria?
Marika.
Maria?
Yeah. Perfect. Okay. And there's my name on the front slide. I know this was for members of the audience, but I do have a unique name. So it is Marika. Marika. Oh, goodness. Okay. So we're talking about the Skyline Natural Area property. For context, this is just east of the Devil's Backbone open space, north of the Oxbow Natural Area. We are proposing a trailhead just behind the Jamocha Joe's Coffee location, and we are west of residential development occurring in Loveland, Meadowbrook Natural Area, Riss-Benson Reservoir. We are proposing that the access for this property occur, a shared access between the Jamocha Joe's property and our trailhead property off of 34. So the scope of the project, Skyline Natural Area, is a 170-acre property. For the trailhead, we are proposing a paved parking trailhead with approximately 20 to 30 parking spaces that will have automatic gated access. Currently, we're proposing that the park would be open dawn to dusk. This is consistent with Devil's Backbone and respectful of the wildlife and our neighbors. That was the feedback that we had heard, that dawn to dusk. So that automatic gated access will close when the park is not open. There will be a vault restroom at the trailhead. There will be approximately 2.25 miles of soft surface trails, and these trails will support a variety of recreation uses, including hiking, trail running, mountain biking. We are proposing future connection to the Dakota Ridge Natural Area, so it is outside of the scope of this discussion, but it is just to the northeast of the Skyline property. And we are being required to install a median along Highway 34 to meet the CDOT access control plan, which I will go into a little bit further. So our property is a little bit unique because, as I mentioned, we share an access drive with Jamocha Joe's and then a privately owned property, the Manasso property there. The existing road into the property occurs almost entirely on Christine Williams' site. She's the owner of Jamocha Joe's. But really, it's a 60-foot shared access easement. And so right now, the access is almost entirely on her property. We would improve that access, and it would be a shared access. And the encumbrance would be on both the Williams property and the City of Loveland property. There would be signage, paving, and lane striping to discourage visitors from going further north past our trailhead entrance. And the city would be responsible for these improvements. So a little bit more on that CDOT access plan. I've got it in that red bubble there. I'm sorry if it's difficult to see here. But currently the site actually has 3 access points, and CDOT is requiring that we close 2 of those access points. So we will be installing a median really along the frontage in front of Jamocha Joe's through the end of the Williams site. And this is really to control access. It will continue to be a full movement intersection, and it will align us with Rossum Drive to the south. There is a left turn lane going in both directions, east and west. Our traffic study does not require any additional signaling, but we will be making intersection improvements within that private easement. So currently, the site's not a lot to look at, but it is beautiful. That's a picture of that shared access drive. So this is really viewing it towards the northeast of our property. And so you would have Jamocha Joe's kind of behind where that picture was taken. And then over to the northeast is the City of Loveland property where we are proposing the future trailhead. And then a closer view of that property from Highway 34. Thank you. Once we leave the trailhead property and we head towards the natural area, that image on the left is a view north once we've crossed the Loudon Ditch into the Skyline property. And then once we are on the Skyline property, that middle image is a view west towards Devil's Backbone open space. And then the last image there on the right is a view south from the hitching post, which is currently on that property. So that's a view toward Mariana Butte. So this project has gone through significant public engagement. It was back in 2019. The city began to acquire property for Skyline in 2015, always with the intent that this would become a natural area. So in 2019, as we started to work through appropriate uses on this site, we engaged our Open Lands Commission, which is a resident-led commission, on some concepts and some ideas. And once we had those concepts identified and kind of narrowed down to 3 options, those were presented to the public through an open house. Public were also invited to provide comment online. There were 2 open comment periods, one for the concept plans and then another open comment period. Once we had our draft management plan completed, they had an ability to comment on that draft management plan. I recognize that 2019 is a while ago. I wasn't with Parks and Rec when we went through that process. So I've made it a goal as I've taken on this project to get to know my neighbors. I am a firm believer that in Parks and Rec, what we're doing is providing a service to the community. And if we're not being good neighbors to those that are next door, we're failing at our service. So I've made it a point to go down and meet with the neighbors that I have that shared access with. So the owner of Jamocha Joe's and that private property owner, to really understand their concerns. We also sent out a letter on April 29th to all of our neighbors within a 500-foot radius of the 170-acre property. I introduced myself, I introduced the project, I provided my contact information because I really want to get to know our neighbors more and understand what their concerns, questions, comments may be. Additionally, we do have a ton of information online, so if neighbors haven't seen this, I would encourage you to write down lovegov.org/skyline. That's where you're going to find detailed information about proposed trail locations, trail uses, wildlife restoration, habitat protection, and really a good collection of the public feedback that we received throughout this process. So I encourage you to take a look at that website. Next slide, please. All right, so tonight we're here to talk about comprehensive plan consistency. So I recognize that we won't get into the details of the trail location, neighborhood connection points.
Maybe give us just a moment to
Okay.
try to. Obviously, having microphone problems.
Okay. And again, if neighbors have comments or questions about the more detailed components of our plan, my contact information will be on the last slide of this presentation. It was also provided in this letter. Please reach out. We would love to hear from you. Tonight, we're talking about comprehensive plan consistency. So as mentioned, the purpose of the location and extent is to determine if our proposed use of a natural area and trailhead is consistent with the Larimer County Comprehensive Plan. I feel strongly that it is, and I would love to share those reasons with you. The City of Loveland is committed to consistency with the comprehensive plan. We prioritize inclusive opportunities. Access to all of our open spaces are free. Community health, obviously getting people outdoors, and environmental stewardship, which is our primary objective, is really preserving our beautiful natural resources and being good stewards of our land. Also, preservation of land, biodiversity, and ecological resources. So beyond the specific policies, this proposal really aligns with the primary themes of the comprehensive plan, and I've pulled out the 3 primary themes that I just highlighted on that earlier slide. Inclusive opportunities, where it calls for ensuring that recreation and tourism remain balanced and viable long-term, recognizing that recreation and conservation bring significant economic, health, and quality of life benefits. If we start to move towards that community health, recreation offers an opportunity to participate and be active through open space and conservation, and really creating a connected transportation and trail system. So what's really exciting about Skyline is it's not just serving the City of Loveland, but it will serve the larger Larimer County community, and we're really excited about that. And then environmental stewardship, I didn't even bother to highlight specifics because I think we embody this in everything that we do. And really in this plan, a lot of work has gone into not only understanding the environmental resources, but the cultural resources as well. So specific policies I'd like to highlight within the watersheds and natural resources section. Can you guys not see it either? Okay. don't like looking at myself. Gosh. Perfect. All right, so within the comprehensive plan watershed and natural resources section, it calls for us to effectively sustain lands with high ecological value. This is a really unique property. This is where the prairie meets the foothills, and this is a really important transitional habitat zone between the Rocky Mountain and the prairies. So we're really excited about the opportunity to preserve this land. Before the city of Loveland acquired it, it was slated for 5-acre lot residential development. So we are excited that we really get to preserve and celebrate the natural resources on this property. Another policy is to prioritize land conservation and acquisition that meets multiple natural resource protection and outdoor recreation goals. In these adopted plans, across the board, the City of Loveland, Larimer County open plans, the state of Colorado, we hear from our community and our residents statewide time and time again the importance of access to soft surface trails and access to nature. We're really excited about this, not only because of the unique property, but its location adjacent Devil's Backbone, its proximity to the 22-mile recreation trail in Loveland, and your ability to access it in ways other than your vehicle. We think that it will be a great addition to the community. And then for the community policy, to conserve natural resources where appropriate, supporting recreational uses within public lands, and conserving these lands for our natural resource framework. And so really just reiterating kind of the image to the side here is one of those boards that was presented to neighbors back in 2019 and 2020, kind of identifying some of the unique vegetation, wildlife, and cultural resources that have occurred on this site. And we're excited to share those with the community, to protect those. But really, we believe that having the community informed and engaged in these properties and understanding why they're so important leads to further preservation of land. Within the economy section, the comprehensive plan calls for us to accommodate recreation and land conservation as economically valuable land uses in rural areas. This is really important because just east of the Skyline property, residential development in Loveland is exploding, especially in northwest Loveland. Immediately adjacent to the Skyline and Dakota Ridge property, we are in the process of having approved or are approving almost 1,300 units, and that's immediately adjacent to this open land. And so the opportunity to protect this, this was originally slated for that residential development, is really amazing. But then also giving members of our growing community the opportunity to access these natural properties is really important. From a health and social consideration, encouraging a broad distribution of these lands and connectivity of open spaces. So as I mentioned, we're pretty near Devil's Backbone, just north of the Oxbow Natural Area, and north of our 22-mile recreation trail. And once you've accessed that recreation trail, it will bring you to our. Let's try this again. No? I promise I don't sound like that. Okay. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. But you really get the health benefits of having connectivity, not just to the Skyline, but to our growing recreation facilities throughout Loveland. And the last policy I would like to highlight is really under that community separator. So on to the right here is the future land use map of Loveland, and everything within that orange dashed line is within the Loveland Growth Management Area, and the Skyline property falls just to the west. And so this is a really ideal community separator between this really urbanized city of Loveland, and then as we move out further west towards that more rural county development. If I haven't highlighted these appropriately in the previous slides, we really feel that this aligns with the policy and framework in the comprehensive plan. We're protecting, maintaining, and enhancing healthy ecosystems. We're offering diverse, enjoyable, safe, and environmental recreation opportunities. We're connecting the city of Loveland to natural areas and our other visitors. We're helping to really define that western edge of Loveland. And we're supporting the growing demand for natural areas. And as I said, we've got approximately 1,300 units going in just to the east of us and many more in Northwest Loveland. And really, our community continues to grow here on the Front Range. And so protecting these properties is going to continue to remain important. So there's my contact information on the top of the slide there. That's my email, and that's the direct line to my desk for anybody that has questions. If I'm not at my desk, please leave a voicemail, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. But at this time, I'd like to open it up to any technical questions or comments that the commission may have. And thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kopp. Are there any questions from the planning commissioners? Go ahead.
See if my microphone works. Can everybody hear me? Okay, so great presentation. As always, the City of Loveland does a great job with these, especially from Parks and Recs. This is the second or the third one that we've heard recently in the same area. For location and extent, significant growth in this area. I was reading the packet. The size of the parking lot, 20 to 30 cars. Is that big enough? Considering that you're looking at tying into these other trails, and maybe for Mr. Curry, a traffic study is required during the application process, correct?
Stephen Rothwell, Larimer County Engineering. I assume everyone can hear me. Yes, at the technical review phase, there will be a traffic impact study that is required.
So just for City of Loveland, do you guys think that maybe this actual proposal should be a little bit bigger? Because I just see a lot of people using this, especially on really crowded weekends, kind of almost as overflow for Devil's Backbone, maybe in 5-10 years.
Yeah, so if I can touch on that quick, and then I will pass it over to Brian Harding. So this parking trailhead area is really to support the Skyline Natural Area. And then as I talked about, as we go further north to Dakota Ridge, that will have its own separate parking and trailhead area. It's really important to us and to the neighbors that we are not causing a traffic parking problem in their neighborhood. So we've already installed fencing and gates, and we've posted signs that say no parking, but we have no intent to create an attraction where folks are going to travel up into the neighborhood to gain access to this property. In fact, we will discourage that at all costs. So I will hand it over to Brian so he can speak more to the number of spaces identified.
Sure, and thank you, everybody. My name is Brian Harding, the planning manager with City of Loveland Parks and Rec, and I think Marika really nailed that point. So this is one of 2 parking spaces for the larger Skyline and then future Dakota Ridge property, which will be connected. This is the southern terminus of the property, known as the Skyline property. The northern terminus, like Marika had talked about, occurs up at 43rd Street, and that's part of the Dakota Ridge property, but that is fully within city jurisdiction, which is why it's not part of this application, which is an unincorporated Larimer County. There, in the future, potentially may also be walk-in access to the Dakota Ridge property from some of those new 1,300 houses that Marika was talking about. Very specifically, going back to the public engagement process, we heard from folks, especially in Namaqua Hills, that additional parking in the Namaqua Hills neighborhood was not something that was of interest to neighbors. And that's why we've located parking on the north and on the south, but not in the middle in additional parking lots. Likewise, this is a large property for city standards, but by comparison, Devil's Backbone next door is pushing 1,500 acres. We're about 400. So there's a very different scale and scope there in terms of carrying capacity of this site. So one of the carrying capacity pieces of this is also limiting the amount of visitors that can come onto this site by not having, for instance, 100, 200 parking spaces out there, and a property like this being completely overwhelmed. This is not meant to be a Horsetooth Mountain Park or a Bobcat Ridge or a Devil's Backbone size facility. So it's a great facility and kind of a first of its kind here in Loveland to offer this type of hiking and mountain biking experience, but again, keeping scale and scope in perspective. Thank you.
Any other questions from the planning commissioners? All right, seeing none, I'll say thank you for your presentation. If you don't mind having a seat, and we will open this up to public comment. And so I would ask that if you'd like to provide a public comment, come on up to the, come on up, sir. Come on up to the microphone. Got a couple of you interested. You can take turns. Please say your name and spell your name for the record. 3 minutes, please. I'll try to be flexible, but
Okay.
that's our standard rule.
My name is Robert Ashley. I live at 2103 Ponderosa Drive, one of the properties adjacent to this area. And if I understood correctly, tonight there's not an approval of the location of trails or dealing with security, fencing, stuff like that. This is just about that parking facility and the access to it. Is that correct?
This is about the authorization to use the property generally as described, but it's not the technical review about where the parking lot goes and things like that.
So general use of the area where the parking lot will be, or the whole 170 acres?
We're mostly talking about the parking lot.
Okay, all right. The reason several of us are here is that in spite of the fact that apparently there were plenty of opportunities to participate and make an input to the city about the details of this overall project, I can only remember one situation where a bunch of us got together in one of the buildings down at the bottom of the foothill, and we talked through what you guys had conceived of, et cetera, and we wrote comments on the board and all that. I never got any feedback on that, and I've been a resident there for a couple of decades, stuff like that. So one of the things I'd like to do, Brian and Marika, if it's possible for several of us to get with you folks.
I'm sure they'll chat with you afterward, but I have to have you please make your comments towards us.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Just
okay.
the way we need to do business.
Our overall concerns are based in some of the things that have already been brought out. The narrow streets don't allow public to come and park and then try to walk through our property to get to the back end and all that, et cetera. And one of our neighbors has put through or has written a document that the fellow sitting next to me is going to suggest that we give to somebody here to take a look at about the issues and the concerns. In terms of access from 34 to the parking lot, all that stuff sounds reasonable to me. What I don't know is, given the fact that we have a history of a lot of crime at Mahaffey Park, and we have issues with homeless people building camps and all this sort of thing, do these automatic gates assure that people who come in actually leave? And are the enforcement agencies for the county and the city staffed to assure that we don't have criminal elements, drug trafficking and all that sort of a thing, that come into that parking area and stay in the evening and find another way out, et cetera, et cetera. So for me personally, short of speaking with the planning folks in Loveland, that's the main issue that I can see that should be addressed here.
Thank you very much for your comments, sir. And we will make sure and ask the applicant to address those issues when they come back up.
Okay. And can we submit this to somebody so you guys may have copies?
You can give that to Ms. Axemaker there. Thank you very much. Sir, you wanted to come on up? And please state your name for the record.
My My name is John Lee. I live on 1905 Ponderosa Place at the top of the hill where all these trails are going to be basically running past. I don't know if you understand that at the bottom of Morning Drive or 34 Morning Drive is where you're planned to put this parking lot. There has been a couple of deaths, and they're actually trying to stop us from turning left out of our neighborhood and trying to make another area. So you're going to be causing another bottleneck to cause another accident down the road in this parking lot. So there has been a couple of deaths in that area, just so you understand. And we have actually a turn lane to turn out of our neighborhood, which is the only access we actually have to get out of there to turn left. And the city is actually trying to get rid of us to do that. So you're going to have this, and then some people are going to be slowing down to turn right into this parking lot. And that's going to cause more issues for the neighbors who actually live there. The other one is, obviously, I'm realizing this is not actually talking about the trails anymore, about our neighborhood. This is only about the parking lots, is it? Is this all this commission is all about?
The property is intended to be used for trails and
yeah, but are we only talking about, so today, are we only talking about how this parking lot's going to be used? Because you're not talking about how it's going to impact our neighborhood where everybody walks around next to our properties. Are we talking about that as well?
You can make your comments on that if you want.
Okay. All right, let's go on that one then. So you basically said to this gentleman that you weren't talking about that, and we had the meetings about that, and you said, no, it's not. You just said that to him, and we are talking about some of these trails that come in, not within 50 feet or 500 feet, they're coming within 30 feet of our houses, our private properties, and we have properties up there, and we bought them for why we did, and they're $1 million properties. And you're walking into our backyard, and we don't have any shutters, we don't have curtains, we live on our backyards, and we basically have pools on our backyards. And these people now are going to be walking past our backyard, looking into our neighborhood, looking into our back rooms, and looking into our bedrooms. So, and the trails that they are proposing and they said are old existing trails. No, they're not old existing trails. They are deer trails that have been made over years. And this is actually a sitting area for the young deer who come in there. The mothers give birth. They basically rear their young in there. They walk around our neighborhood and then go. So this is going to impact all of that reproduction of our deer and reproduction of our thing. We have bobcats, we have mountain lions, we have everything up there, and bears. And the thing is, this is going to impact the birth rate. And we already have a problem with the birth rate of our deer and everything else that's actually destroying our ecosystem. And this
Thank you
is going
very
to
much
destroy
for
it
your
even
comments,
more.
sir. I appreciate them.
No, you're not listening to it. It's
Your
going to
time is
destroy
up,
our
sir.
neighbor.
Please.
I have a time restriction?
Yeah,
I thought we were talking. You did tell me a time restriction. We're talking.
Mr. Chairman, point of order.
just asked
Mr.
us.
Chairman, point of order, please. Mr. Chairman, point of order.
I'm just
I
trying
would
to
like,
pass out some information.
excuse me,
You
sir.
told me I
Excuse me, sir. I'm speaking. Point of order. Ms. Axmacher, staff, could you reiterate the time restriction and appropriate decorum for public comment, please?
I'd be happy to. We have a 3-minute time restriction on public comment. The timer is displayed on the wall. And as a reminder, the appropriate decorum for the Planning Commission meeting, give me just 1 second. Please wait to speak until recognized by the chair. Please maintain civility, refraining from audience applause, comments, or disruptions, whether positive or negative. Please make all comments to the commissioners from the podium. And that is the extent of public comment. And we also have security present should that decorum not be followed.
I thought I just did that. I wasn't out of order. I just basically tried to tell you.
I hear you, sir. I appreciate the passion behind your comments. We just have to give everybody an opportunity. We put the 3-minute timer on there, and I try to give everyone some flexibility. So I will ask, as we typically do, if there's anybody online that would like to provide public comment on this item.
As a reminder, please use the raise your hand function if you'd like to speak online. We have no hands raised.
All right.
We do have a hand raise.
Okay. We'll come back to those in the room if you want to provide public comment, but let's start with that person online.
All right, Sherry, I will allow you to speak. You will need to unmute yourself, and you'll have 3 minutes. And please introduce yourself before you begin to speak, Sherry.
This is Sherry Vines. I actually lived in Devil's Backbone in Hidden Valley Estates. I think there is a lot of energy from people who live around the trails, but that is a city issue that they'll need to update the feedback that they got back in 2019. Because your goal is to create collaboration, as I understand it, or coordination between the city and the county, I just had 2 quick observations that hopefully you folks can be proactive about. Otherwise, you're going to have several callers in order to react. The first one is, as people cross from your parking lot to go up into Skyline, it's very easy and is done by others currently to jump along that road that follows Loudon Ditch to get over to Devil's Backbone. And that's becoming more seductive all the time for folks to create their own interface between the 2 trails, between the city now and the county, especially as Skyline's developed. So I anticipate those folks that are creatively figuring out how they can connect the 2, even though you haven't worked out an official connection, will require someone, either the city or the county, to respond to situations when that rule is violated, independent of signage, independent of fences. We have very tenacious folks that want to make that connection already. The second thing that I would say is, as soon as we started charging for Devil's Backbone parking, there have been numerous occasions where users, to avoid paying, will in fact park along Highway 34. I anticipate that if you open Skyline, there will increase that activity. And once again, who is going to stay on top of that issue? Because that does create access issues in terms of visibility for people leaving Devil's Backbone, either the trail or the residential area. And I think you're creating a situation where the county and the city are going to really challenge yourself to be proactive in your collaboration, your coordination of how you manage the downside of some of this increased activity.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Ms. Vines. We appreciate your comments. All right, sir, come on up.
My name is Michael Langersmith. I live at 2009 Ponderosa, which is kind of near the top here. First of all, I want to thank you for saving us from 5-acre properties. Let's be a little positive here. That's kind of cool. Sadly, your approval process happened during COVID, so a lot of us, there was none. This stuff wasn't happening. We're face to face. Her comment on the Loudon Ditch intrigues me because I've often wondered why we didn't connect with the Loudon Ditch and even take it a step further and go from Loudon Ditch. I know I can't look at them, but I'd like to talk to them later. Loudon Ditch along Morning Drive. That may take some of the pressure off your parking. It would make an incredible link because you could come from town all the way to Devil's Backbone and never have to get on the pavement. So step it up a little bit, maybe. I mean, I like what you're doing. I'm glad it's not homes. I would have several comments that I'm concerned about. I'm hoping this is like fires are strictly prohibited. Is that correct? Anybody answer that? Because that's, smoking even. It's
ask the applicant.
Yeah, that's a really spooky thing. That wind blows, a cigarette ash could take us all off the hill. The fire department will tell you that. That's a tinderbox up there. Secondly, with John's comment, there are times when it is really, having lived there, I've lived there, I think I'm 11 years, the birthing rate and stuff could really be impacted if we're not let's be careful. There might be a time when maybe it's closed because it's that time of year. They do it in Steamboat for the mountain for the elk. So it's something to think about. The fires was a concern of mine. Loudon Ditch. I think I'm also the signage. Would we have an opportunity to weigh in before this thing is all said and done? Maybe one more public. It sounds like we're going to get it approved, and that's I'm glad it's not 5-acre parcels. Believe me, but at some point, maybe before we final implementation, is there another opportunity for us to have some input now that it's not COVID days, where people actually get together?
I'm certain that the applicant will meet with you
One more time. I mean,
this
just
is the last public hearing,
we could.
but I'm sure that the applicant will meet with you.
Yeah, and that would be good. So yeah, I'm pretty positive on it. I'm just glad it's not homes. So I guess that's what I've got. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Anyone else online who would like to provide public comment on this item, this agenda item?
We have no additional attendees online.
All right. And anyone else in the room here of the public who would like to provide public comment, come on up.
Which one do I use? My name is Lisa Lee. I lived at 1905 Ponderosa Place. And I noticed on the map, they had the little viewing areas. And where the viewing areas were pointed, I think there's like 4 viewing areas, and 3 of them are pointing to the west, and 1 is pointing directly to our house, which I don't really like that much. A question is, I noticed the pictures you had. She presented the 3 pictures, but they didn't present any pictures pointing east, which is where all the houses are. It makes it look like it's just an empty, deserted area, but it's not. There's houses, and we live really close, and especially that viewing area. My question is, what are we going to do about trash? They're going to come out of Jamocha Joe's with their Jamocha Joe cups, and probably it's the public. A lot of people just leave trash everywhere. We have bears. Bears are very active. They've been on my back porch. I've had bobcats on my back porch, the deer, the elk. What are we going to do about the trash and the bears and the people? I mean, it's wherever you have people, you have trash. And I don't want any bears hurt. I don't want any mountain lions killed because of the people. Sometimes the public can be very dumb, and they try to interact with mountain lions and whatnot. And I don't want the animals, because that's their backyard. We are in the animals' backyard. I don't want the animals to get killed, or rattlesnakes. Are we going to start killing stuff because they're interacting with the public in a negative way? I didn't notice any issues were addressed about the animals. And the viewing area is right next to, our viewing area is right next to our house. I guess that's all I have to say is the trash. The parking, there's 2 parkings, right? One down by Jamocha Joe's and one north. I wish we could have the map up so we could see it. Do we really need that second access? Because Devil's Backbone only has 1 access. Why do we have 2 access? Why? I think we only need 1. Keep it at Jamocha Joe's. Keep it out of the neighborhood. That's it.
Thank you very much for your comments. Is there anyone else? Come on up. Please state your name.
My name is Sandra Lal, and I'm at 2009 Ponderosa Drive. And I just have one question. If there should be crime committed, there's been things that happen. There have been homeless people that have camped out for 2 years below us in that area. People park in someone's driveway if they see it empty and they think it's an empty lot. What jurisdiction would I call if I have these problems? I usually call Larimer County Sheriff when this has happened.
We will have that question answered for you.
Oh, you will? Okay. The next meeting or?
No, by the applicant and by staff.
Oh, all right. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Are there any other members of the public who would like to provide public comment on this item? Well, going once, going twice. All right, we'll go ahead and close the public comment. And I would ask the applicant to come back up. Sure you were taking notes, as was I. Want to try to address the public's comments.
Good evening again, Brian Harding, Planning Manager with Loveland Parks and Rec. So I'll lead off, but up with here with me tonight, of course, you've met Marika Kopp, as well as Marilyn Hilgenberg is here tonight. Marilyn is our Open Lands and Trails Manager from the City of Loveland. So we will do our best to tag team answers here. We've all been taking notes, and so we'll try to cover all the topics. I think if we start off first, just maybe talking about wildlife on the site. One of our core values and core missions as the Open Lands and Trails Division of the City of Loveland and the Parks and Rec Department of the City of Loveland is conservation of properties. That includes conservation of habitat, conservation of wildlife, protection of wildlife throughout the city on all of our properties. This is what our Open Lands and Trails properties are about. Yes, there is always a balance to be struck between public access and wildlife and conservation. At the same time, it's that public access and the taxpayers that are paying for these properties that help us to conserve them in the first place. So as Marika mentioned, this is a property that was slated for 5-acre lots on almost its entirety. If you go north to Dakota Ridge, we had an opportunity to pull that property out of private development. The reason it's not here tonight on the Dakota Ridge portion, that property was fully annexed into the city and slated for development. So I think it will be a pretty stark contrast out here when you see what is coming to the east of this property. As Marika mentioned, 1,300 houses. There are a number of developments that are coming right up to the border of this property. This is an opportunity to conserve this property in perpetuity, and that includes protection of habitat, includes protection of those breeding areas. All of those were taken into account in the creation of the management plan. The management plan for this property details those environmental studies, the habitat studies, the wildlife movement corridors that were all taken into account. Our trail system out here is actually quite a bit reduced from what we originally planned. It's pushed out of those wildlife habitat, critical habitat areas. Yes, there is still a trail system here to provide that recreational purpose, but there is also a significant amount of this property that is conserved from recreational access and is kind of a no-touch off limits to recreational access. So trying to hit on that. Getting into patrolling of this property, I may pass this one over to Marilyn about some of the agreements and how we manage some of our other properties, and then I'll grab the microphone back.
Yeah, this property is in Larimer County, and so the sheriff are the main jurisdiction when you guys have an issue. However, it is a City of Loveland property, and so Loveland PD is also the secondary responder, particularly with homeless issues. Before, 5 years ago, we did not have a homeless encampment policy and system set up. In the last 5 years, the City of Loveland has a very active system. We have a reporting system, so it's online, it's through the police department. They tag, we clean up every week. So if you see anywhere out there, please report them ASAP. We've gone from 100 camps over the last 5 years to 1 or 2 per week, and they were removed immediately.
And I think an additional piece on that I'd like to touch on is when we have properties that are not open to the public yet, it also means it's a property that we likely can't patrol. So we may have staff out there on occasion, but we don't have developed trail systems. We don't necessarily have a place to park. One of the advantages here in terms of that patrol side, I heard concerns for fires, trash, homeless. We don't disagree with those. Those are all absolutely things that are concerned to us as well. So as part of our open land system, we have staff on site on almost a daily basis. As Marilyn mentioned, this is a property that would ultimately be patrolled by the Larimer County Rangers from the Sheriff's Office. This property will have eyes and ears on it, as well as active public out there, of course, reporting any type of issues that come up. And believe me, we hear those reports when somebody notices something that feels out of place. I wanted to talk just a little bit about timeline and public engagement. So it takes an enormous amount of time and energy and effort and money to bring a property from acquisition all the way through development. So just a few phases of those processes, of course, right off the bat is the acquisition process, which sometimes can take multiple years to acquire. Part of that comes into putting the funding together, sometimes putting the grants together to acquire the property in the first place. From there, we get into a public engagement and planning process. Oftentimes, there's a year to 2 years involved in that process. And that takes us back to that 2019-2020 period when we were conducting public engagement. We did hold a public meeting out at Group Publishing, and I recognize several faces here tonight from that meeting. We also walked this site on many occasions out there, looking at some of those views, both the beautiful views that we have, but as well as the views back to residences to make sure that we're pushing far enough away from residences. I don't think we're quite within 30 feet. In fact, we've pushed quite a bit farther west with the trail system after talking to neighbors and hearing those concerns. After that, we develop a management plan for every property before we open it. That management plan in itself is oftentimes a significant undertaking. So some of the additional public engagement that was involved, in addition to those community meetings, as Marika mentioned before, was going before our City of Loveland Open Lands and Trails Commission, as well as our Parks and Recreation Commission. Those are all resident-led commissions. There are also meetings that are open to the public, very similar to this one tonight, where we take public feedback and public engagement, as well as online outreach. Of course, part of this occurred during COVID. That initial public engagement meeting that we had was in person. That was one of the last meetings before we all kind of went into that lockdown phase, but we still continued to work on this project. Again, all those meetings that we had for the Open Lands and Trails Commission, similar to tonight, are also on Zoom, and they were still publicly accessible during that time. All that being said, I don't think that we would be opposed to this idea of a refresher and connecting back with folks. I think it is important to perhaps go through a couple of those misconceptions. I hope that we could clear this up with a refresher. So things like access to Morning Drive. Our access is not off of Morning Drive. We're actually significantly farther west. So if you're familiar with the turn into Morning Drive versus the turn into Jamocha Joe's. So part of the reason that we're not required to add additional lanes onto Highway 34 is that the left turn lane already actually exists into this access point and into Jamocha Joe's. It's already striped. It's already in place. That right turn also already exists. It's not a separate turn lane, but it is a right turn movement that already exists on Highway 34. So just for clarity, I wanted to point out that we're in a bit of a different location here than that. We'd be certainly happy to provide that kind of refresher and update on where we've come. At the same time, from 2019 and 2020, when the master plan or the management plan for this property was adopted in 2022, the management plan is fundamentally the same trail layout with some minor changes to push things farther west than were presented at some of those early meetings. In other words, there's no surprises in here from those early meetings when we had those discussions. There's no significant change of course from those original meetings. And if anything, I think there's been some improvements of reduction of overall trail area, pushing away from the houses and limiting in some cases where bikes can go versus where pedestrians can go on some of those trail networks. Anything else? Anything you wanted to add? I'll flip through my, here,
I'm happy
trade
to.
view. I'll go through my notes.
I'll just add really quickly, as I mentioned, and I recognize that posting information online is not sufficient enough if people don't know that that information exists. And so getting the word out to neighbors is going to be really important. And I promise that that is an objective of mine. And so please contact me. I find it most helpful if I have a neighborhood representative or a couple that I can reach out to that will help me disseminate information. But if you go on lovegov.org/skyline, that's where you will find the management plan. And then in Appendix C of the management plan is our summary of the public feedback comments. So this wasn't just through the open house, but that also includes our online commenting portion. And so you'll see why some of the decisions were made from the concept that was presented at that open house to the plan that's presented, the trail map that's presented in this management plan. But as Brian said, I would be happy to do a refresher and hear from neighbors again. As Brian mentioned, this is also highlighted in the management plan. Habitat preservation, wildlife preservation is wildly important. So you will find a ton of information in the management plan about the mule deer and the other wildlife on site and how it was really important to us. We recognize the importance of like mountain mahogany and the habitat that provides to our wildlife. And so not fragmenting that habitat was a huge objective of the plan. And I think that we've been successful with the conceptual trail that we've developed. Really, the trail location was identified and designed from a maintenance perspective, a constructability perspective, a resource conservation perspective, and being a good neighbor. So that's not just being a good neighbor to our our human neighbors, but also our wildlife neighbors. As corny as that might sound, but that is a primary objective of ours here in Parks and Recreation. And so we share the neighbors' concerns on that front as well.
And going back through my notes, if I can add maybe just one more piece answering some of the Loudon Ditch questions that came up and the ditch road. So if you look at mapping, there is a logical connection that would run from the Loudon Ditch west. And we don't necessarily have this on our maps in this larger context, but I'm kind of speaking out loud. If you were to zoom out from here, there does seem to be a logical connection along the Loudon Ditch Road west over to Devil's Backbone open space. There's a few different reasons, though, that isn't necessarily explored. One, we did hear from the neighbors to the west, and we know that is not necessarily an interest crossing through that neighborhood. This would be Hidden Valley Estates. Crossing through that neighborhood to access Devil's Backbone. Number two, there are some differences in the way that the properties are managed. So I heard before there was a concern that Devil's Backbone currently is, I believe, a $9 entry fee. The city of Loveland does not charge entry fees to its properties. So that creates a few challenges in itself of how do you keep one from going to the other. And maybe one of the arguments for not connecting along the Loudon Ditch Road is exactly that we don't necessarily want the Skyline property to be overwhelmed by traffic trying to then sneak across and into Devil's Backbone. I think certainly a management challenge that we'll have will be to make sure that is not happening. The Loudon Ditch Road is owned by Loudon Ditch Company, and so we'll work with them to make sure that we're all on the same page there. I appreciate the comments of perhaps in some cases there is access that is desired along the Loudon Ditch Road over to Morning Drive. That's also something that we have explored. We haven't come to any further agreements with that over time, but it is, again, something on a map that makes a lot of sense. There's always a balance between, on one hand, especially as a neighbor, not necessarily wanting the general public coming through your neighborhood, and I think we've tried to address that by not having any parking whatsoever, including on-street parking in the Namaqua Hills neighborhood, or for our neighbors to the west. We've also heard that a lot of those neighbors don't necessarily want to drive all the way down to a trailhead or all the way north to a trailhead, and that they'd like to still have some access into the natural area themselves. And so that's why there is a walk-in access up at the top end of Morning Drive. It doesn't accommodate parking, and this is up at the north end of the Skyline property. It does allow for neighbors to access the property there without having to get into a car and drive down to a trailhead. So there are options there that I think are hopefully a little bit of the best of both worlds. Anything else?
I guess the thing I'd just like to add is, we appreciate the neighbors coming and talking to us. When we build in open lands, it's the people that live right there that are 90% of our users. You guys are the ones that are going to love it out there. Mariana Butte is a great example. We built a trail system out there. It doesn't have a big parking lot. It's at the clubhouse that people can park, but the whole idea with these spaces close to town is we want people to walk in. We want tons of walk-in access, and we got grants based on that for the health of the community. And most times people don't care if it's a county or city or state. They just want their space close to where they live, and this is going to be a phenomenal site for you guys to enjoy. Legally, I might say. There is a camera, and we have a lot of neighbors that still enjoy sneaking onto the property, and we've had a stall in time here, getting everything lined up, and who I'm hearing from is that neighborhood really asking us when can we get on? We want to get on. We want to use this property. So we're excited. We're moving toward that.
Can I just say one last comment? I am so lucky to have come into this project at this point, and the staff in Open Lands and Parks and Recreation is really fantastic. So just one final reiteration that we are excited to hear from neighbors. We welcome feedback from neighbors, and we look forward to continued conversations. And we really thank commissioners and staff and neighbors for their time this evening as you've heard our proposal.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Stick around for just a minute. Are there any questions from the planning commissioners?
I just only have one other question that maybe you guys could just quickly address, but it was about the automatic gate and how that works, how you make sure that people leave once they go in.
Yeah, we have these gates on a number of properties, Vistine Smith, Prairie Ridge, out by the state wildlife area. So what happens at a timed 8 o'clock or whatever, the gate shuts. Somebody doesn't get locked in, they could actually still get out, but that does allow us to shut the gate from night traffic. Another additional security feature, we've added a number of solar cameras on almost all of our open lands properties, and we have a service that monitors that all night. And so we'll get warnings, somebody's in the parking lot or somebody's come through. They can actually voice deter them. So they can say, hey guys, what are you doing out here? You know, you're not allowed, we're sending a unit your way. So we get really good compliance for that. So I think some of the concerns with regards to safety, fencing, but we also have rangers that will be on patrol. We have a security system, cameras, gates, all of those in an attempt to protect our wildlife and our neighbors in those areas.
Great, thank you. Yeah, and I just echo my colleagues' sentiments. I think you guys do a really nice job in your presentations, so thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the planning commissioners? All right, well, thank you very much for your presentation and your comments. Are there any questions from the planning commissioners of staff? If not, is there any discussion? Well, I can provide some comments just to say that I think that at the outset, in our somewhat limited role here, we're looking not for whether this application meets any particular criteria as described in the land use code, but rather whether it meets with whether it conforms with the comprehensive plan. And certainly, very proud to have my name as a contributor to the comprehensive plan passed back in 2019. This certainly fits within the intent of that comprehensive plan and as specifically described by the applicant and Mr. Curry. So I will certainly be voting to approve the location and extent. I think that it's a fantastic opportunity. I live maybe 6 miles due north of this in the same interface, the urban-rural, urban-mountain interface. I've seen all of the wildlife. My dog survived a bear attack. I've seen it, so I know the concerns are real, and I've also seen a lot of traffic up by Horsetooth, South Bay. So all of your comments and concerns are very legitimate. I'd encourage you to continue to, but to reach out and to Marika's there. She's gave you her direct desk line. I think she's willing to chat. There is a technical review that happens after this where basically the county professional staff get to chime in and make sure that it's a great project. And we've seen, as my colleague here said, we've seen a few of these come through, and the city of Loveland, I think, does a pretty good job. And so what I heard tonight is no exception. Based on all of that, I will be supporting it. Any other comments?
Yeah, just would echo a lot of your sentiments. I really appreciate all the participation tonight and the great questions. I think there was a really kind of great dialogue, honestly, back and forth. So hopefully this was helpful in at least some of those regards. It is a location and extent, so we're evaluating it at a fairly high altitude, and for me, it checks kind of the boxes there as well, so I'll be supporting it also.
Unless there are other comments, I would call for a question, or call for a motion.
Dude, I don't have it right in front of me.
Oh,
I'd like to make a motion that the Development Services Team recommends approval of the City of Loveland's Skyline Trailhead Location and Extent File number 24, Zone 3633. Subject to the following conditions. Technical review and approval is required prior to any construction of the project and prior to applying for any applicable construction permits and/or applicable building permits.
Commissioner Duffy, if I could just make a friendly amendment to your motion to change it to the Planning Commission instead of the Development Services Team recommends.
and it's final approval, not a recommendation.
Thank you. I'd like to make a motion to the Planning Commission to have final approval of the City of Loveland Skyline Trailhead location and extent, file number 24, Zone 3633, subject to the following conditions. Technical review and approval is required prior to any construction of the project and prior to applying for any applicable construction permits and/or applicable building permits.
I have a motion. Is there a second?
I can second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second for approval of this location and extent review. Any further discussion?
Just seeing some staff
Yeah.
discussions.
Any further discussion, staff?
Oh, he said the development team at the beginning, he was reading the slide, not that motion.
But then he got it right the second time, right?
Yeah, we're
Oh,
good.
yeah. Okay.
I was just reading the slide. If you have something else that you need me to read, yeah.
All right. And seeing no further discussion, I will request a roll call vote.
Commissioner Duffy,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Slut,
I think that got cut off. Commissioner Slutsky?
John, can you hear us?
Just give us a visual sign.
I don't think we're getting anything now.
John, can you hear me? Make a thumbs up. Nope. All right.
If you can't hear us, we probably can't.
All right, we're going to try that again. We're very close. We're going to take a moment to try to figure that out.
Hello? Hello? All mics are off.
Oh, are they? Hello? Hello?
We're not doing like a singing competition or something.
Eurovision. Well, we need to give John a...
We were so close.
So close. Two. We'll talk about. I think you got me, Jordan. Anyone have his number?
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, just double tap on.
I haven't seen, I've seen those going up 34. I've seen those huge, gigantic houses. I've never gone into Devil's Back.
It's pretty awesome.
I go there. I don't go all the way that far south very often. North end.
Hello?
Like blue sky.
Oh. Mr. Slutsky, can you hear us?
now we can hear you all. Thank you so much.
Okay, great.
Chair Choate, was that a yes from you or a no?
I think we cut off, so I want to do I would like to redo the roll call vote, please.
Not a problem. I can definitely do that. I'm going to go in the same order if that's right.
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Duffy,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
Rowe,
Yes.
Slutsky,
Yes.
Chair Choate.
Yes.
Thank you. I think we got it that time.
Thank you very much. And so the motion passes, the application is approved. We appreciate everybody's participation in the hearing this evening. I'm looking to see if we have anything left on our agenda. Annette, the only thing left is reports from staff. Do we have any reports?
Just two quick updates. The June PC meeting will be canceled because it falls on the Juneteenth holiday. We're looking to see if we need to convene a special meeting or not to replace it. Stay tuned for that. We will have a joint work session, though, in June with the BCC. And that is it. Let's bring this one to a close.
All right. We're at the end of our agenda. We are adjourned. Thank you all.